You're listening to World Talk Radio, where the world comes to talk.
This is Jerry Prokopovich with Civil War Talk Radio. We all know that the Civil War cost over 600,000 lives, and many of us who study the war focus on how those lives were taken, the tactics, the weapons, the generals, the battles. But sometimes we look at how lives were saved. Today, we'll look at the world of a hospital steward in the Civil War through a diary left by one such person, and we'll talk to the editor of that diary, Michael A. Flannery, when we return on Civil War Talk Radio.
Everyone faces conflict. At home, at work, in the community, in the world. Fix Your Conflicts is a show about how to fix those conflicts with practical tips and techniques. Doug Knoll brings to the internet airwaves the first of its kind, a show that teaches peaceful resolution to life's daily battles. That's Fix Your Conflicts with Doug Knoll, broadcasting live every Monday at 11 a.m. Pacific on World Talk Radio, Studio A.
World Talk Radio, bringing the world to you.
Welcome to Civil War Talk Radio. I'm Jerry Prokopovich, coming to you today from the campus of East Carolina University here in Greenville, North Carolina, on a beautiful spring day in the, It's April of 2008. I'm catching my breath because I just ran across campus a meeting of the Provost Council. We're discussing problem-based learning. We're talking about the scholarship of engagement, all kinds of buzzwords. This was one of those meetings where things went on for 90 minutes with a slideshow, the usual PowerPoint going on, and people looking at their own materials and sort of drifting off. And then at the end, somebody raised a question that people were actually interested in, and other people began talking about it, and suddenly a discussion broke out, an actual productive discussion at a scheduled meeting. I wouldn't have believed it if I had been there myself. But that's what happened. People responding, and so I wanted to stay, but it was time to go and get back here for the show.
Okay.
So there we are.
Sorry, the reason I didn't call is
sorry,
we forgot about the time zone difference.
Oh, hang on. Michael, hang on. We'll be with you in just a minute.
Okay.
If you're there, hang on. I've got a little housekeeping to go through, and I'll be right there.
All right.
As always, before I forget, the legal notes are that we are not being sponsored by East Carolina University, and anything I say, in spite of the fact it's coming here from the Brewster Building, is actually my own thoughts. My guest will speak for himself, not his place. It's all our own. And listeners, you'll want to remember that the Did Lincoln Own Slaves World Tour continues as it does seemingly every week without end. Let's see, this week, where are we going now? Back to Fort Branch this evening, but it'll be too late for anyone to hear that. I'm trying to pull up the documents in front of me as I sit here recovering from the walk across the campus. Our campus is designed here so that there is no straight line between any two buildings without another building in the middle, and it's impossible to get anywhere quickly, but that's how it works. Well, you'll have to go listen to another show. I'll be at the Louisville, or the Filson Club in Louisville in late June, Gettysburg also in late June, and Lexington at the Bluegrass Book Fair near the end of May. If you're curious about any of these or might be near any of them, send me an email. I'll be happy to let you know where I'll be and what we'll be talking about there. So enough of that. Let's get back to today's show, which is what we're here for. And today we have, as a guest, Michael A. Flannery from the University of Alabama, Birmingham. Michael, thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome.
We are we did not do a live show last week, and listeners, I apologize for that. The guest was all lined up, and just something came up one way or another, and he was unable to call in. We'll try to have him back next week and get caught up on that, and we'll just rake him over the coals for not being here, particularly since he teaches at University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and I'm here at East Carolina University, a branch of the statewide University of North Carolina system. But the people in Chapel Hill are keenly aware that they are the flagship university, and we here in Greenville are just a satellite. And Michael, I'm guessing perhaps at UAB you get some of that with the...
That sounds rather familiar.
I did my undergraduate and law school work at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, and that being a flagship, I take a second. I was fully familiar with the attitude one acquires at the flagship university, looking down at Dearborn and Flint and those satellite campuses.
And of course, I went to undergraduate at Northern Kentucky University, and then went to graduate school at University of Kentucky. So there's a flagship system there as well.
And you know the attitude. And then to play the trump card, I did my doctoral work at Harvard University, to which all other institutions are but mere satellites.
Oh, absolutely. Bow and genuflect at the mere mention of the name.
Precisely. So when I get my good friend and colleague from UNC Chapel Hill on next week, all you listeners will note in advance I'll continually to refer to UNC Chapel Hill rather than simply UNC as they call it, as if it were just one of the many campuses. It drives them crazy when we do that. But enough about North Carolina. Let's get back here to the University of Alabama at Birmingham. And in particular, Michael, you work there in the historical library?
Yeah, I have. My official title is Associate Director for Historical Collections at UAB, and what that is historical collections is an umbrella term for really three distinct departments within historical collections: the Alabama Museum of the Health Sciences, University Archives, and the Reynolds Historical Library.
So you direct these?
Yes,
things?
I'm responsible for those three departments.
What? So is your background in archives or libraries?
My background, I have dual degrees. I have a master's degree in history from California State University at Dominguez Hills, and I have an MLS degree from the University of Kentucky. So I come with a background both in history and in librarianship, with a particular emphasis on rare book librarianship.
And that brings us to this, what we're going to talk about today in particular. We'll talk about a number of things, I'm sure, but this book that you have produced, let me dig around and pull out my copy of it here. I'm not normally this scattered about, but today was an exceptional day now. I was just looking at it, and it's right in front of me. The title of this book is Well Satisfied with My Position, titled The Civil War Journal of Spencer Bonsall. And this is a journal that I gather the original of is in your collection. Is that right?
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
Where did you come by this journal?
Well, this collection was originally given to us by namesake of our Special Collections Library, Dr. Lawrence Reynolds. Dr. Lawrence Reynolds was an Alabama native. He went to University of Alabama, where he got his undergraduate education, and then took his graduate training in radiology at Johns Hopkins, and he had a very successful radiology practice up in Detroit, Michigan. His main interest was bibliography and the collection of rare books, and obviously being a physician, collected in his field. And fortunately for us, toward the end of his career in the 50s, he was thinking about a permanent home for his collection, and it was our happy benefit to get his collection, which he bequeathed to the University of Alabama School of Medicine. and it was formally dedicated in ceremonies on February the 2nd, 1958. So we're celebrating 50 years of the Reynolds Historical Library here. At that time, he had collected about 6,000 volumes. We've since grown to about 13,000 volumes. But the point is that within that collection, one of the things that he left us was this fascinating collection of journal entries, which consist of about 60 pages, handwritten pages, some of it on interesting stationery like John B. Hall, wholesale and retail dealer in drugs. And I thought something needed to be done with that. It was obviously unique, one-of-a-kind material. And so I worked with our library associate, Catherine Omans, in compiling those. She did the transcribing, and then we sort of divvied up the work between adding some informative footnotes to the materials themselves, and then I worked on the introductory essay and epilogue. So it was definitely a two-person job, and I really have to say thanks to Katie Omans for working with me on putting this together.
Well, the book you produced is a very handsome and a small but very handsome volume with illustrations throughout, photographs and others that really give a sense of the world of Spencer Bonsall. Is there other Civil War material in your collection?
Yes. As a matter of fact, our former chair of surgery, Dr. Arnold G. Dehelm, donated a huge amount of material, of course, long after the original bequest. And in fact, Dr. Dehelm is retired now, but still a very active member of the Reynolds Associates, which is basically our Friends Club, which supports a lot of our programming activity here. At any rate, he has given us a sizable body of material, and we now have the Arnold G. Dehelm Civil War Medicine Collection. Now, our collection is not free-ranging. It doesn't cover all aspects of the Civil War, but we do focus on Civil War medicine and healthcare, and have a very nice collection.
Well, I want to talk about that in some detail later on as we go. But let's look first at this particular journal.
Okay.
Who was Spencer Bonsall?
Well, Spencer Bonsall was a hospital steward, and that's what we would know today largely as he was sort of a chief hospital administrator, but consistently, the consistent thread that runs through all the activities of hospital stewards is that they were essentially what we would know today as pharmacists. He had been a pharmacist earlier in civilian life, and so the leap to hospital steward was not a great one for Spencer Bonsall. If you look at the hospital steward's manual, knowledge of pharmacy and compounding and the materia medica of the day, the materials of medicine, was an assumed body of knowledge before one could even be considered as a hospital steward. So he was a hospital steward, and he served with the 81st Pennsylvania Volunteers. And during his tour of duty, had a variety of fascinating experiences in the Peninsular Campaign, the Battle of Fredericksburg, all the way up to the Battle of Gettysburg.
So you mentioned, as I was looking through this, he joins the 81st Pennsylvania in March of 1862, as McClellan was getting ready to undertake the campaign on the peninsula. But he was in a regiment, but did he literally serve with the regiment, or were the stewards detached to serve with larger hospitals? How did that work?
Well, he was not in the front lines, but he would be either with the field hospital unit back where they were caring for the men. So when he talks about, for example, the actual activities of the Battle of Fredericksburg, he is there as they are deployed and has a sense of the impending battle. But when the battle itself occurs, all he says are all he sees are the men that are coming back to be cared for, the wounded and injured. So he's not really there on the front, and so sometimes the reports he gets of battles and engagements is sort of gathered secondhand through the men that he's actually treating.
And so you can tell it's a big battle when this flow of casualties.
No, absolutely. And some of the things that come through is he, along with most of the men, absolutely adored McClellan. They felt that he was almost a magisterial figure, and he as much as says so in his journal.
I noticed that he thinks very highly of McClellan, who is sparing with the lives of his troops, but does not get the job done on the peninsula.
Right. Well, he was, McClellan was known for drilling his men, but not particularly known for engaging his men. But the men absolutely adored him.
Does he write about other leaders?
A little bit that he has some association and contact with. But what I think there's a couple of major features of his body of work during the war. The first thing I think that a reader will take away is an intimate sense of what camp life was like, how these men interacted with one another, and what day-to-day camp life was really genuinely like. Certainly not a second-hand account, but really the life of a soldier who was not an officer. Hospital stewards were not officers. They had the rank basically of an ordnance sergeant. So it's a fairly common man's look at an encampment and military life. Now, Bonsall, I say common man. Bonsall was no common man. He obviously had a fairly high degree of education. His handwriting, which we give an actual facsimile of in the book, you can see one of the pages reproduced and see what a fine hand he wrote with. He was not an illiterate man by any stretch. So he was well educated and had an ability to convey in a rather eloquent manner the nature of day-to-day camp life. That's one aspect of these things.
While we're talking about camp life, what did he think of it?
Well, early on, when you look at the body of work, he's actually quite excited, as a matter of fact, and of course he's writing this journal. But what he's doing is he's writing this journal in sort of pieces, and we can tell because we actually have some of the envelopes. He's writing back to his wife, Ellen, up in Philadelphia. And he's writing at one point about how exciting it is to be with these guys. He really hadn't seen any action yet. But he says, boy, this is just like picnicking. And he says, it's like picnicking without ladies. And this is even better. And then he catches himself and says something to the effect that, but of course, ladies are delightful to have, and of course I didn't mean what I was saying, because he realizes, oh gosh, this is going to my wife.
Written like a true husband.
Early on he's talking about bunking with the boys and everything, and this is just like, being, out at camp, it's like almost like a vacation or an excursion with a bunch of his buddies. But later, as he begins to see some of the devastation of that war, he changes his tone and starts to talk more and more about how we have to lick these rebels, and we have to win this war for the good of the Union. And at a couple of places, I think particularly, I'm not sure exactly, but I think it was after Fredericksburg, he actually makes the comment that, we are dead as a regiment. Most of our men are gone.
Well, the war certainly wears more heavily as we go. We're going to take a short break right now. We'll come back in just a moment. We're talking today with Michael Flannery, He is the editor of Well Satisfied with My Position, the Civil War Journal of Spencer Bonsall. And we'll have more from that when we return on Civil War Talk Radio.